right, hello everybody. Come on in. Come on in. Again, from high atop the world headquarters of Southeastern Fly, this is the fastest 15 minutes in fly fishing. I'm going to start off by asking for a favor. Don't want to ask for too many favors, but this would be a big favor. If you could just click the share button sometime throughout this, as you're watching or listening to this video, that would be fantastic. Either on, especially on Facebook, I want to kind of see what's going on there as far as the numbers go. See if we can't get a little bit bigger, larger community going from more over than from what we've had lately, which actually the numbers are going up, so it's good to see that. Meeting a whole bunch of new people, which is really cool. So if you could click the share button, that'd be great. If you tell all your friends, and that would be good too. We could do that. So I'm going to start off by saying, if you were at the Middle Tennessee Fly Fishers meeting on Wednesday night last week, first off, thank you for coming. I'm glad to see. We had what I thought was a pretty big group there. Met some new people and got to catch up with some folks that I'd met last year. We got to talk for a little while, and it was good to see them. But if you were at that meeting and listened, you're going to know exactly where we were fishing just by the fact that we're talking about nymphs today. And I've talked about nymphs before, but I floated a few days ago. I went out with Howard and Jerry, and Howard rode the entire way, all the way down the river, which is a pretty good float, and let me fish out of the front. Jerry brought lunch and insisted on fishing in the back seat of the boat, which was really cool for me because I got the front seat of a drift boat all day long. I did offer to row. So don't think that I didn't. And Howard, I hope you'll back me up on that, and Jerry, I hope you will too. That I did ask, can I row and where can I start rowing? And Howard just ended up being on the oars all day and seemed pretty content. I know I was pretty content to be able to fish all day and just really enjoy myself, and kind of gave me, I really needed some time to kind of clear my head of a few things, and just there's something about floating a nymph that just really, it clears your head. It doesn't matter if you're in a boat or you're wading, however you're fishing. If you're floating a nymph, you got a little bit of reaction time there, so you can kind of drift off. As long as you're watching the indicator or watching your line, however you decide to do it, you can still kind of drift off a little bit and still come right back to hook a fish whenever it eats. But what I want to talk about today is just some of the takeaways that I have, or the observations that I made throughout the day. Just a few of them. This 15 minutes is going to go pretty fast because we may not go the full 15 minutes. But so really, I didn't concentrate on anything at first. Probably for the first hour, I just kind of fished. I just kind of threw it out there. I didn't concentrate on my presentation too awful much. I was trying a little bit, but I really wasn't trying that hard, honestly. If it looked like it was a pretty good cast, I left it. If it wasn't, I might let it float a little while, and then I might pick it up and throw where I wanted to put it in the first place. And sometimes we had floated by where I wanted to be, so I would just kind of pick the next spot. But I would say probably after the first 45 minutes to an hour, somewhere along those lines, I was like, all right, we hadn't caught a fish in that long, so that was probably part of it, although we were trying to get out in front of the crowd. But I started really focusing on, we got to a little run there, and I kind of started focusing on my presentation and pacing that nymph correctly. What I mean by that is we got into some faster flow, a couple quick mends that just happened to be the right way, sometimes by luck, but sometimes there wasn't a lot of skill involved. I'm going to be honest, but we got into a little bit faster run, if you will, and I kind of threw a couple mends in there and got a good float going, and just started pacing that fly the right way at the right speed. And what I was doing was, all I was trying to do is just make that fly float the same speed as everything else on the water. Now, there's only one spot that you can see. You can't see down where your fly is, right? And we hear all the time, you don't know what's going on down there. The currents could be running faster down there than they are on top. And I get all that, and that may or may not be true. But the only thing that you have to pace that fly with and be consistent day in, day out, from fast to slower water is pace that fly at the same speed as everything else on top of the water, because you don't know what's going on underneath. It could be running faster, it could be running the same speed, but you can always pace it. Whoa, you can always pace it by what's going on top of the water. So I really started trying to do that, and we started picking up some fish. Uh, and somewhere throughout the day, it was after lunch we'd stopped. No, it was before lunch. It was before lunch we had stopped and a couple times and fished a couple of spots and changed some flies. And I really didn't want to change anything. I really wanted to kind of veg. It was like vegging out. You know, you're on at home watching TV, not really thinking about anything. That's really what I was doing. But I started getting engaged a little bit. But I was watching Jerry from the back of the boat, and he was fishing kind of straight off the boat. And when I was watching his presentation, and he had just a the tiniest bit of drag, because he was fishing kind of straight out from where he was. Now you think about this as you're waiting. I think about that, and at some point the fly, most people are going to cast out upstream and let it float down past you and then go downstream. Getting that speed right, it requires, if you're waiting, a couple of different mends. But I was watching his indicator just for a few minutes. I was watching his indicator, and I thought, well, all right, I'm just going to watch him and see what he's doing, because he was fishing more off the side, and I'm a fan of fishing downstream of yourself in a boat. In the boat, I want indicators and flies in front of me. Part of that's because I just like to watch and help people understand when they're getting a bite or a hit or something like that. And so Jerry's fishing off the front of the boat, and I said, Jerry, just for a little bit, just cast up downstream ahead of the boat a little bit. Now he cast pretty dang good. He kind of leaned out there a little bit, and Anthony, this is not your hat. I can tell you where you can get one though. You can get one of these at TennesseeFlyco.com. How you like that? Go ahead and order you one of them. Anyway, so Jerry leans out and he throws a cast down in front of me, in front of Howard, where Howard was sitting, kind of beside me. He started picking up some fish there. I was like, okay, well that seems to work. And we were all a little bit happier there, because we were all picking up more and more fish as we went along. We got engaged. We got engaged in the fishing. We got presentations going correctly, and that sort of thing. And that helped us pick up some fish. As we floated on down, Jerry started catching more fish than me, which isn't unusual. So he had tied on a nymph, and then he tied on a midge under that. So it brought his nymph was kind of in the same position, but that midge was even lower in the water column. And that's the next thing that you want to talk about is depth. So as we floated down the river, we started picking our spots, and we kind of started picking the consistently deep spots that were all kind of about the same depth, although they were further and further down the river. So what we did was we just started focusing on that sort of thing. And as we did that, and he had adjusted that or tied on underneath that nymph a midge, he started picking up more fish. So naturally, what do? Whenever your buddy's catching more fish than you want to know what the hell he's using. And that's what I wanted to know. So what I did was I dug into Howard's box. Yes, I did. I got the midge box out and tied me a midge on and started catching some fish too. And part of it, I'm 100% sure was the midge, right? It was the right midge at that particular point in the river, was the right fly. I was still catching them on my nymph that I was fishing. I almost told you what that was, but I'm not going to do that. I was still catching them pretty consistently on the nymph, but I was also catching them on the midge, probably more on the midge. And I think not only was it the right fly, but also probably because it was down in the water column a little bit more. It was a little deeper, another 6 inches or 8 inches or a foot or so. So those two things, right? So how's your presentation? You have one thing to judge by really when you're nymphing, and what is that? That's really that you can consistently see and that you can consistently gauge by is that what speed things are floating on top, right? You've got that. You can always judge by that. You can't always tell what's going on underneath. The other is the depth. You can always add a little more. Now, if you're floating, you have the opportunity to go deep and bring it up a little bit. But as you're waiting, here's another little thing that I learned a long time ago from Pat, the guy that really started. He was one of my biggest influences, and we've been talking about influences because I just got off of another interview for the podcast, but we were talking about influences, and Pat's definitely one of my biggest influences of fly fishing. But he said, you can always go down if you're waiting, right, until you hit the bottom, and you've got several good floats through that water. But if you go too deep the first time and you snag on the bottom, you've pretty much spooked that entire run up. Well, parts of that, the biggest part of that run, just because you've hung on the bottom and had to jerk it up. Now, especially this time of year with all the different types of vegetation in the river, there's a bunch of different types of vegetation. If you get hung in that and you're waiting, you're going to pull up some of that. Now, it may or may not spook the fish, but in my mind, that's probably, you pull up some vegetation off with your fly after dragging the bottom. That's a spooked fish. Kind of hard to catch the next one. You have to move. If you move, you have to re-gauge how deep you are. So if you're doing that, sometimes it's just better to start a little bit shallower and start working your way down and try to get nice, clean drifts, nice, clean presentations that are you pace that fly just the right way. So anyway, at the end of the day, we had a slow first hour or so. Second hour was a little bit better, and then consistently we started getting in the game, and we started catching more and more fish, and it just really made for a great day. I appreciate Howard being on the sticks all day, and then I appreciate Jerry bringing the lunch. It was fantastic. Lunch hits the spot whenever you're out there on the river. There are a lot of people out on the river, and our boat did pretty well. So anyway, I appreciate you coming by. If you please click the share button, if you don't mind clicking that share button, that'll grow the community out there for us, and we can keep doing this thing. And I just appreciate you stopping by. If you have any questions, let me know. If you have anything that you want to talk about or want me to investigate and prepare for, just let me know. Just send me an email, send me a message. Either way, be glad to do it. Again, I'm David Perry. This is Southeastern Fly, and you've just listened to the fastest 15 minutes in fly fishing. Thanks, everybody.